You're listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. To guide us through the intricacies and intersections of emotions, relationships, and male identity is renowned psychologist, author, and speaker Gunter Swoboda. This is Inspire Change.
Before I begin the actual podcast, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I work. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspire Change with Gunter. I'm your host, and this is our final episode for this year. And what a year it's been. So what I thought I'd do for this particular episode, the last one for this season, because, and I'll mention that later, there is a season 6 coming as well, which I'm very excited about. What I thought I'd do for this episode is basically to give a bit of an overview of what we've done this year, a little synopsis, and then some thanks, and then a little bit of foreshadowing about the new year. So season 5 has been a remarkable journey, both for the podcast, but also in terms of my own journey and my partner's journey, and the journey that many, many people have gone through over the year. For some, and I have to acknowledge this, it's not been an easy year. For many, it's been challenging. All sorts of things have been happening, geopolitically, economically, but also on the personal front. And I really want to be able to share some ideas around why I've done what I've done with the podcast. So this year, let's talk about episode highlights. So one of the things that I was very excited about is to do some work together with Dr. Mark Williams, who's a cognitive neuroscientist and a very special featured guest on the podcast. And essentially, one of the things that we did was we explored the cognitive neurosciences behind human connections and relationships, and also to sort of challenge some of the ideas about masculinity that aren't based in science, that are based in certain mythologies and ideologies. Dr. Mark Williams also shared some insights into how understanding our brain's empathy circuit can enhance our interpersonal relationships. And I think this is fundamentally important. There's been too much chat about the sort of Darwinian idea about human evolution and human survival. That's not actually reflected within the neurosciences. Another area that I thought was really, really important was to look at the art of communication in relationships. I delved into what constitutes effective communication strategies and addressing common challenges in personal and familial relationships. You know, how we, cover conflict in our family, in our partnerships, in our marriages. So really that part of the podcast is to focus on the importance on active listening and compassionate expression. In the past, I've talked about, mindful listening and mindful speaking. So this is a very particularly important area. Now, obviously, in today's age where we're seeing deteriorating, mental health statistics, as well as in some areas health statistics, the question of what makes us resilient obviously comes up. And there's been a number of ways in which I talked about, how do we get to resilience? One way is to be flexible and adaptable, not to get rigid. Another way is to be mindful and self-aware, so I can make my relationship with myself all the stronger, all the more safe and secure. But a particularly important episode in this was when I featured Dominic Lynch's story. Dominic is a absolutely courageous human being who's facing, the fight with cancer, lung cancer. And so he was able to share with me his inspiring journey battling this disease and highlighting how to be resilient in this and how the power of a positive mindset can be in overcoming this particular challenge. But most importantly, he emphasized the need and the truth in having good connections and a great team around you that includes not just the doctors but also friends and family, really the community coming along for the journey. And, as we speak, there is no certainty of an outcome here, but he is approaching whatever comes his way with the strength and courage and flexibility of a true spirit. So thank you, Dominic. I truly valued your input. Now, the other area that I touched on is the whole idea of deepening bonds. Mark Williams and I have spent lots of time talking about the fundamental importance about how we can deepen our connections with each other, how we can really, truly become intimate. And in that context, I created a little sort of podcast, which I call Conversations with My Wife. And I must be forever grateful to my wife and partner and, collaborator, because she truly is very much an inspiration to me, and our children and our grandchildren in her attitude towards life and, gender. She's a true feminist and she teaches that. And, my daughter, too, in her teaching high school students, has taken up the call for women's equality and how we've still got so much work to do in creating equal, balanced relationships with one another, inclusive relationships with one another. They may not be easy, and my part in this is to, call men to arms in the fight against the patriarchy, rather than just letting it, meander and spread its toxicity in our relationship, because that's what patriarchy truly is. It is a toxic ideology, and I can't stress this enough. And we will be having more discussions about this, because it is important how we raise our boys, how we raise our girls. One of the things that really concerns me is when I look around social media is in the sexualization, not just of girls, but also of boys. The whole emphasis on body beautiful and, you have to have a particular look, and there's now this phrase going around the internet about look maxing. I mean, what a ridiculous idea. I'll get onto that in another podcast some other time. On this one, I just want to give a summary of what we've done last year. So the other area that I always feel a need to cover is the notion of mindfulness and emotional wellness. What is mindfulness? Mindfulness is whenever it is that we do anything, even breathing, is that we do so with a pure relationship to whatever it is that we're doing, without these distracted thoughts or these ideas and judgments and criticisms of what we are doing or how we're doing it. This running dialogue that interferes with the true connection of being in interaction with our environment and sometimes with ourselves. The episodes in which I talked about mindfulness really were there to provide practical tips for incorporating this into our daily being, and as a result to improve our mental health and our relationship qualities. We are much too often distracted by nonsense. We are caught up persistently in this internal grinding racket of shoulds, musts, and have tos, and the tyranny that results from that. This persistent search for perfectionism that has some sort of external benchmark that somehow should relate to us. I have conversations like this on a daily basis with people in therapy. That we need to unchain ourselves. Some of us are chained by golden handcuffs and corporations, and with it, the need that we somehow need to conform to be able to climb the ladder and collect more wealth, material wealth. But you got to ask yourself the question, what cost does that bring with it? Is it a cost to my health, my emotional well-being, my relationships? What? My social connections? And then the question is it really truly worth it? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we don't need money and that a corporate career is wrong. My argument is let's change the culture of corporations to be of greater support to the individual and the community as a whole, rather than something that just sucks the blood from us. I've also, in this last year, focused on the idea of community support and the impact that has. I want people to think about not just creating a better self, but let's create a better community. And then let's create a better country and a better planet. We need to have an ecosystem that supports our well-being for the long run and creates sustainability, not just for an individual human life, but for the ecosystem as a whole. Now, we know that our connection with our ecosystem enhances our well-being and it enhances our resilience. So the idea is get in touch with nature, get out there, allow yourself to be part of it rather than separate from it. Become a person that is a steward of your environment rather than simply an owner who can, acquire and discard at will. We have a living culture in Australia that has lived this for over 60,000 years. Surely it's time to take a leaf out of their book. And it was with deep, deep sadness that Australia rejected their voice in the system. And that was, to me, deeply disturbing. It made me look at our country, at our nation through very different eyes. And I wish I wouldn't have had to do that. I wish we had been more progressive, but we got hijacked through fear and through the narrow-mindedness of political dinosaurs. Now, in amongst it all was also the idea that we need to navigate modern parenting challenges. Ultimately, it is how we are as parents and as grandparents in this particular technological culture that we have. So, is it modern parenting or is it just parenting? But we need to really look at the balance between career and family life. Because if my career outbalances the well-being of my family, i.e. my children, then is it worth having? Because essentially, and I say this not tongue-in-cheek, but truly, if you do not, you are simply creating more clients for more psychologists and therapists and OTs and so on. Much of what I do can come under the label of reparenting, where people need a stronger attachment to somebody who doesn't judge, doesn't criticize, but helps to build their self-awareness, their flexibility, their resilience, their understanding of what it means to be kind and nurturing and compassionate with oneself, let alone with others. If you can't do it for yourself, you can't do it for others. And so with it comes the need for cultivating self-compassion and growth. And in that context, we build tighter friendships. So again, as I said, season 5 has been a remarkable journey. So what I want to emphasize here now is I want to thank all those people, the subscribers, the people who listen regularly, those who come in for once and move away. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being part of this year and part of the stories that we've all got that could be shared with one another. If you want to share them with me, I'd be happy to listen. So, thank you, Dr. Mark Williams, Dominic Lynch, my wife, Lauren, and all the people who've been a part of my life this year. Thank you very much. It has been a great honour to be there for you and you be there for me. So as I close this particular podcast, there's a lot of excitement because we're going to be moving into season 6, where there's going to be more thought-provoking topics, heartfelt stories, and hopefully some transformative insights. I'm going to delve more deeply into issues about personal growth and exploring new dimensions in change and self-discovery. I've also got some exciting news. There are a couple of new books that are going to be coming out in the new year. We're looking to, generate, and regenerate our documentary on the crisis of man. But there's lots and lots of stuff happening. So please, come and be part of our journey because it is a collective, our journey. I'm simply a voice amongst many. Hopefully, I represent a sensible, rational, mindful voice and coming from a compassionate and tolerant perspective and a scientific perspective rather than a judgmental one or an ideological one. So let me wish you all out there happy holidays, a Merry Christmas. If you've been through a Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah. Whatever persuasion you are, whatever you need to feel that you need to celebrate, please do so with the joy, the compassion, the kindness and the nurturing that is often so lacking in our culture throughout our days, let alone at this period of time. So until next season, season 6, this is me signing off. Until next time, stay well. Love to hear from you. And if you're interested, please check out my work on www.gunterswoboda.com or www.goodmengreat.com.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. For more information on the Making Good Men Great movement, or for individual or group coaching sessions with Gunter, visit goodmengreat.com. For inquiries regarding broadcast topics or appearing on the show, email Miranda at Noirtainment.com. That's Miranda at Noirtainment.com.